The piercing cry that cut through the morning silence wasn't human. It was something far more desperate. Thomas dropped his axe and turned toward the sound, his weathered hands still gripping the handle as a massive Siberian tigress emerged from the tree line, carrying something small and limp in her mouth. She moved with careful, deliberate steps, her golden coat streaked with dried blood that wasn't her own. The cub dangling from her jaws hung motionless, its tiny chest barely rising and falling. Thomas had lived alone in these remote Oregon mountains for 15 years, but he'd never seen a wild tiger, let alone one approaching his cabin with such obvious intent. The tigress stopped 20 feet away, her amber eyes fixed on his face. She lowered her head and gently placed the injured cub on the ground, then stepped back and sat, never breaking eye contact. The cub's left hind leg was twisted at an unnatural angle, and a deep gash ran along its shoulder, where something sharp had torn through the fur. Thomas understood. This mother had traveled miles through unfamiliar territory, driven by an instinct stronger than her fear of humans. She'd somehow recognized that her injured baby needed help she couldn't provide. Moving slowly, Thomas retrieved his first aid kit from the cabin. The tigress watched his every movement, but didn't retreat as he knelt beside her cub. The little one whimpered as Thomas examined the broken leg, but the mother remained perfectly still, her massive paws planted firmly in the dirt. For 3 hours, Thomas worked to set the fracture using wooden splints and medical tape. He cleaned the shoulder wound with antiseptic, applied antibiotic ointment, and wrapped it carefully. The tigress observed everything, occasionally making soft chuffing sounds that seemed to calm her baby. When Thomas finished, he offered them both fresh water in metal bowls and strips of venison from his freezer. The tigress accepted both, eating carefully while keeping one eye on her recovering cub. For 6 days they stayed. Thomas built a small shelter beside his cabin where the tigress could rest while her cub healed. Each morning, he brought fresh meat and changed the bandages. The cub grew stronger, taking tentative steps on its mending leg. The tigress began to relax, sometimes even closing her eyes while Thomas worked on her baby. On the 7th morning, the tigress picked up her cub, now walking steadily, and headed toward the forest. She paused at the tree line and looked back once before disappearing into the dense undergrowth. Thomas returned to his routine, cutting timber for the winter supply. 3 weeks later, while hauling logs near the ravine, he heard the sharp crack of splintering wood above his head. A massive, dead branch, loosened by recent storms, broke free from an ancient pine and crashed down across his back. The impact drove him to the ground, pinning him beneath 200 pounds of solid oak. His legs went numb instantly. He couldn't feel anything below his waist, and when he tried to push the branch off, shooting pain tore through his ribs. His radio was back at the cabin 40 yards away. It might as well have been 40 miles. Hours passed, the afternoon sun beat down mercilessly, and dehydration began to cloud his thoughts. His voice grew hoarse from calling for help that wouldn't come. No one would miss him for days, maybe weeks. As twilight approached, Thomas heard something moving through the underbrush. Heavy footsteps, deliberate and measured. A familiar golden shape emerged from the shadows, followed by a smaller form walking confidently on 4 healthy legs. The tigress approached the fallen branch and sniffed at the wood pinning Thomas down. She positioned herself at one end and pushed with her powerful shoulder muscles. The branch shifted slightly but didn't lift enough. She tried again, this time gripping it with her teeth and pulling backward. Thomas felt the pressure ease across his back. The tigress adjusted her position and pushed again, harder this time, her claws digging into the earth for leverage. The branch rose 6 inches, then a foot. "That's it," Thomas whispered, using his arms to drag himself forward as she held the weight. "Keep going." With one final surge of strength, the tigress lifted the branch high enough for Thomas to pull his legs free. She held it there until he was completely clear, then released it. The branch crashed back to the ground with a thunderous impact. Thomas lay on his side, feeling slowly returning to his legs. The tigress walked over and sniffed his face, her warm breath washing over him. Her cub approached too, now fully grown and healthy, showing no trace of the injuries that had brought them together. The tigress touched her nose gently to Thomas's forehead, a brief, deliberate contact, then turned and walked back toward the forest. Her cub followed, pausing once to look back at the man who had saved his life. Thomas watched them disappear into the darkness, understanding that the debt between them was now settled. In the wilderness, survival often came down to simple acts of mutual aid, regardless of species. The tigress had learned this lesson from him, and today she'd returned the favor in the only way she knew how. He slowly got to his feet, testing his legs, and began the careful walk back to his cabin, grateful for the reminder that even in the most isolated places, compassion could forge connections stronger than fear. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more amazing animal moments. See you in the next tale.